on to our next session of the day. It's a quick speech by an industry leader, Mr. Iain MacDonald. He'll be talking about going from just a lawyer to a business partner. Something about Mr. MacDonald here. He's the General Counsel for Asia, Middle East, and Africa at Lloyd's Register.
Thank you very much for having me. I think I'm probably the least popular person in this room because I understand you haven't had lunch yet. And so I promise I'll keep it to 10 minutes. If there's any questions, then maybe you can just come up to me after I've kind of done it, because I think otherwise you guys are going to die of starvation. So yeah, let's just go on. So I'm going to talk about how to get closer to the business, really, how to become a business partner rather than just being seen as purely a lawyer. And it's in 3 stages. So first of all, be one with the business. Second of all, focus on finance. And third, engage with ethics. And I've tried to be quite snazzy in my strap lines there. Hopefully you all kind of noticed that. So the next one is being one with the business. And what we did in Lloyd's Register is we went through a customer journey with the business. So each legal team, there's 3 different teams. There's America, there's Europe, and there's Asia, Middle East, and Africa. They all had a customer champion. And that customer champion basically kind of met with internal customers. We spoke to more than 60 internal customers. And what we did is we went through this customer journey map. So basically, it kind of talks through the different interactions that we have as a legal team with the business. So it's about how do our customers become aware of the legal team? How do they discover us? About the service that we provide. How do they contact us? How do we make sure that we have all the information that we need in order to give them the advice? How do we deliver that advice? And then about relationships. How do we give more value to the customers? What can we do to kind of add that value and to get closer to that kind of business partner rather than purely, a legal advisor? And then just finally, how do we deal with customer concerns? And what we did is we talked about, as I said, the kind of touch points that we had, the interactions that the legal team had with the business under those various headings. We got their feedback. We got their thinking about whether there was any barriers that prevented us from giving them the advice that they needed, any solutions that they had in mind, because obviously the business are the ones that we cater to. So we want to hear their thoughts. We want to hear what they think about the legal team as a whole. And we got the kind of feedback based on that, the good stuff, the positive interactions that they've had, the neutral observations that they had about the legal team, and then the areas that we needed to focus on and improve, as a legal team. So what we did is we got a consolidated set of responses for each of the 3 kind of areas, and we identified recurring themes. So anything there that was kind of, kept coming up over and over again, in the 3 areas. As I said, there was a lot of positives, but there was obviously kind of, as with any legal team, as with any team, there's going to be areas for focus, areas for improvement, areas that we need to work on. And these are just some of the quick wins that we came across, and perhaps they're useful for you as a legal team as well. One of the things is that we became more involved in the induction process. There was a feeling that perhaps the legal team wasn't as visible as we could be to the business. How do they learn about us? How do they find out who we are? Our contact details, our names, how do they kind of get to know us? And so whenever employees are being inducted in Lloyd's Register, we're part of that process now. We got invites to business meetings. We invited the business to speak with us as a legal team. We identified business buddies, so these were individuals who we trusted, who we got to know, who advised us on technical aspects, things like scopes, any particular kind of technical areas that perhaps as a legal team we, were less familiar with. One of the things that the business came back with was about NDAs and prioritizing those. So we came up with a 2-day turnaround for NDAs. They're quite painless usually from a legal point of view. They're not as kind of onerous as obviously terms and conditions, and they're quite quick. They're fairly short documents. So what we did is, rather than kind of add them to the list of things that we had to review that day, we prioritized them. We put them at the top, because if we didn't, then they could be a bottleneck for the business. And then just finally, one other thing is we shared resources. So there was a feeling that perhaps there was a bit of reinvention, within the team. We were doing things that perhaps another team had already done. And so what we did is we got a SharePoint database for all the teams to share resources, for all the teams to share their know-how, their knowledge, their insights, their kind of background with the business. So that's been something that we've kind of focused on as a result of that feedback. So each quarter we kind of rolled out some new quick wins. We reviewed the progress. We followed up the conversations with those customers who had given their time with our internal customers, so that they saw that it wasn't just a kind of tick box exercise, that we were actually doing something as a result of their feedback. And we updated posts on Yammer as well. And then just kind of final thoughts on being one with the business. So recently, COVID, I think, has presented us with an opportunity to get to know the business better. I don't know what it's like in your organizations, but in Lloyd's Register, there was a kind of silver team that advised on COVID within Asia, and I was part of that team. So it wasn't just legal, it was kind of common sense issues. It was health and safety, all those kind of things. We were part of that discussion. And again, that's a good way to get to know the business, to become closer to the business. Future ways of working, obviously with leases, being reduced, with the number of office space being reduced. That's another area that we as a legal team have been much more involved with. And then debt collection. So historically, I think it's quite easy to outsource that, but that's another area where we have done a lot more in-house, and the business really, really appreciates that. It's an area that doesn't take up a huge amount of our time, but the feedback that we got as a result of that was really, really immense. So those are just kind of my thoughts on being one with the business. Conscious of time, I'll go on to focusing on finance. I think this is another area that we as lawyers need to focus on in order to become those kind of business partners that we seek to be. There's a tendency perhaps to see ourselves more as kind of word people than numbers people, but I think it's incumbent on us as lawyers to understand financial statements. And if we don't, there's a danger that we're excluded from discussions, from conversations, from conversations in the boardroom, or acquisitions or things like that. And numbers come into so many aspects of what we do, whether it's insurance, whether it's bonds, whether it's guarantees, whether it's budgets, mergers, acquisitions. There's a finance element to all of that. So what we did as a legal team is we got some training in-house on financial aspects, how to look at balance sheets, how to look at financial statements, those kind of things. So again, I think that's an area that you could consider. And then just finally, engaging with ethics. So as an organization, Lloyd's Register, we pride ourselves on being a trusted advisor to our clients. We kind of emphasize that we care, we share, we do the right things. And so anti-bribery, corruption is fundamental to everything that we do. It covers everyone, and that includes any acquisitions that we have as well. We've got mandatory online training, and we do town halls. And town halls are basically where we kind of give, face-to-face training like this. And just some thoughts on that. I think it's a lot more fun if you make it interactive and competitive, and I'll give you an example shortly. And from an ABC point of view, from a adequate procedures point of view, it's important that we keep attendance. There's no point doing lots of training if you don't have a record of it. It's very important to kind of have those attendances locked down. Use local examples. So if you're doing training in Singapore, use examples of bribery and corruption that have taken place in this country. You can use figures from your area. So we have a gift and hospitality register. And we can identify which countries are using it really well and which are using it less well, and we can focus on those countries. We can look at completion rates for the ABC online training, and we can say, okay, why does this particular country, why is its completion rate a lot less than other countries? Why are, for example, subcontractors' completion rates less than employees? And include those in your induction sessions as well. If you're doing inductions to a particular country, then that's a good way of addressing, ABC, and the fact that it is important to use these opportunities, gift and hospitality, online training, use those in your induction sessions with the business. And this is an example, I think, of how to make it more interactive, because sometimes people can be quite loath, they can be quite hesitant to kind of raise questions or answer questions. And just one way that I found, which is really good at getting people to kind of speak, answer in a poll is just to kind of, okay, look at this corruption perceptions index from Transparency International and ask them, like, what is the most corrupt country in the world? And people guess all sorts of different things. What is the least corrupt country in the world? Where is their country on that list? Is their country towards the kind of least corrupt end or towards the most corrupt end? And actually in our patch in SAMIA, South Asia, Middle East and Africa, we have the most corrupt country in the world and we have the least corrupt country in the world. So it's a really interesting area from that point of view. And I think engaging with the business on ABC, making it fun, making it interactive, making it relevant, to their country, adds a lot and helps us, I think, as lawyers, not just to be there kind of giving rules and, spouting forth our good stuff, but actually makes it entertaining, makes it engaging, makes it more exciting for our customers as well. And again, helps us to be seen as kind of partners, business partners, rather than just pure legal advisors. So that was it from me. I realized that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully I kept to my 10 minutes, and you can all go and have lunch. And if there are any questions, perhaps rather than delaying everyone, you can just come and grab me before lunch, yeah. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.